In this video, let's take a look at the Wavetable-LFO modulator. Now, there already is a wavetable oscillator, but with the Wavetable-LFO modulator, you can use this to modulate a parameter, and you can choose a wavetable that includes an array of waveforms, and you can use the index to cycle through the different waveforms in the array and get some very interesting modulation effects. And I'm going to be using the polygrid synth over here so that I can access that module within the grid. So it sounds like this. I'll just play back the instrument before we do anything. So what I've got is a U-tune oscillator using the sawtooth waveform going into a filter and then an envelope and then to the audio output. Now, if you look over here, I'm just going to search for the wavetable oscillator. So this was the original wavetable oscillator. With this, you can choose from an array of waveforms, and from that, you can cycle through the index, choosing that particular waveform as the oscillator. But now for this, I actually want to use the waveform LFO. And the reason for this is I can use the wavetable and the waveforms and cycle through that and modulate a parameter. So let me show you how this works. I'm going to connect this to the phase section. So I'm going to adjust the phase on the union instrument. And then for the wavetable, I can actually click here and choose from a selection of Bitwig wavetable files. What I want to go for is this sines by harmonics. So it loads up quite a complex waveform here. And as I increase this index, you'll see how this modulates or cycles through the waveform. So I'm going to play it back. So this is adjusting the phase, and the phase is being modulated by the wavetable. I can cycle through this. See as it moves through. So if you just click over here and you click show help, you can get further details on the wavetable oscillator. But as you see, we're using this type of waveform here, which is the wavetable. This is the display of it. And I'm using this index to cycle through the different types of wavetables in that array. And with the signal output, I'm going into the phase section. Another thing I quite like is using the phase offset. When you increase this up, it actually gives a nice stereo spread to the sound. So take a listen over here. Pull down this. And then cycle through the wavetable. Now, to take this even a step further, how about using another modulator to modulate this index? So basically, the modulator is going to get this to cycle through the different waveforms in the wavetable array. And to do that, let's actually add an instance of curves. So I will go over here and I will look for the curves module. I'll add that and let's load up a curve. How about going for the auto wow? And what we're going to do is we're going to modulate the index. So that's going to cycle through those waveforms. And that's going pretty fast. So let's actually slow this down. And I'm going to slow this down by choosing bars and increasing this up to about 6 bars. So as you can see, it's cycling through a lot slower, and maybe making this bipolar so that we got that happening both ways. Maybe also changing the rate on the wavetable LFO here. So I'll go to Hertz and pushing this up. And pushing up the phase. And let's add a beat in with this. So I've got this beats over here that's playing back. And go back in here. So there you go. That's how to use a wavetable LFO to modulate an instrument. And as you saw, I used the polygrid, and in the grid mode, I used the wavetable to modulate the phase. We chose a wavetable waveform, and with this index, we could cycle through. And to make it even more interesting, I used a curve LFO to cycle slowly through this index. And also what I showed you is how you could use this phase switch over here to offset the phases to create a nice stereo spread to the side.